Hi everyone, it's Marissa from bumblebeeapothecary.com, and today I'm here to share with you my 4th natural positive home birth story for this little guy. I'm really excited to share this birth story with you. I hope that you don't mind. I'm still like in my apron and in the kitchen and everything for doing these. It's just so much easier to just keep my filming set up the way that it is. So I know it feels kind of funny, but I think it's okay. So I am so excited to share this birth story with you. I'm so excited about how it went. It's amazing. My mind is still blown at how I did not know my body was capable of that, which seems funny, but if you've seen my first 3 birth stories that I have uploaded already, you'll know that my first 2 especially were very long and hard in the 2nd stage, and I had kind of just decided that that's the way my body was. Maybe I have a narrower pelvis, and that's just kind of the way it was. But my 3rd birth story kind of showed me that no, things can actually be better. If you've watched that one, I'll have all these linked down below so that you can go check them out. But in my 3rd one, if you remember, it was way better. It was an hour and a half of 2nd stage labor versus 4 hours like I had in my first 2 labors. And then this one was even better yet. So let's jump into how it went. So I did not have any what I would actually call false labor this time. What I did have were just Braxton Hicks that were like getting serious. Like they didn't hurt. I could just feel like, wow, there's a lot of dilating going on. And then towards the end, as they came more and more, when they would come, I'd just be like, woo, contraction. But yeah, nothing like real labor or anything. So that is kind of the extent of what I was experiencing up until the day that labor actually began. So a little bit of background. So if you've watched my 3rd birth story, you'll know that I discovered something that made a huge difference. Very much a game changer in how my labors went, and that was body work. There's a lady who does craniosacral therapy and body work here locally, and I had gone to her once towards the end of my 3rd pregnancy, and I believe that that is what made such a big difference in how much faster and easier that labor was, especially with that baby and this baby being very big. They were both 9.5 pounds. So I had always filed that away in my mind to make sure that I do that if we had another baby. The other things were switching to a different midwife who was more listening to what, you know, respectful of kind of what I wanted to do, and not just being like, here's what I think you should do, but more listening like, oh, okay, your body wants to be in these positions. Yeah, okay, that's good to listen to that, you know, that whole thing. And I talk about that some more in other videos. I'll have those linked below. But one of the biggest things I made sure that I did was good chiropractic care all the way through pregnancy, and then also doing the body work. And both of these ladies give you tips on how to sit, your posture, you know, no reclining back because that encourages baby to be in a not very good position. You know, sitting up straight, keeping your pelvis and everything lined up, lifting correctly so that everything is going to be lined up very well, doing lots of forward activities to help bring the baby's back forward. They go over all that kind of stuff, super helpful. So I followed all that to a T. I went and did the craniosacral therapy body work 3 times all throughout the 3rd trimester for his pregnancy. And yeah, let's talk about how things went that day. Just wanted to give that little bit of background about the things that I did that I think really made a difference, and those are the things. A midwife that I worked really well with, a, you know, chiropractic care from a really knowledgeable Webster certified chiropractor. She actually knows more than even Webster. She has extra training beyond that that applies to pregnancy and childbirth and chiropractic adjustments with those in mind. And then of course the body work, which I think was probably the biggest thing. So doing that 3 times in the 3rd trimester. So let's talk about the actual day and how everything unfolded. So this was different. The other 3 labors that I've had all started in the evening, kind of as I was trying to go to sleep, or I would wake up with contractions or something like that. This one was very different. It started in the morning. So I woke up around 5 in the morning, I remember, and I could feel those contractions that I thought were pretty similar to the serious Braxton Hicks ones that I had been, where I was like, whoa, dilating, but wasn't like painful or anything. I just felt, okay, these are strong. And I tried to go back to sleep. I don't think I was able to get back into very deep sleep, but I just kind of dozed until I needed to get up at 7 to start getting my daughter and other kids ready to get out the door to take my daughter to school. So I went throughout my morning and they were getting stronger, definitely stronger, not closer together, but stronger. I went throughout my morning getting breakfast ready and just doing all my things that I usually do. And it was getting to the point, I remember as I was getting breakfast ready, where I had to stop and breathe through them. So it was getting closer to the time when I needed to take my daughter to school. And I remember thinking, should I do this? Should I try to drive her to school? It's like a 7-minute drive away, but still, like, I know that my first stage labor usually goes pretty fast. And so I would just hate to be, you know, stuck away from home in a car or whatever, all my kids with me, if it were to start. I went ahead and took the risk. I went ahead and took her to school. I had some pretty good, strong contractions while I was driving that I had to be like, okay, breathe through these. So I did it. I successfully got her to school and came back home, and it was okay, but the contractions were continuing to get stronger. I had to really stop and breathe through them and really focus on them. And so I got home, and it's funny because at this point I was still like, is this really the real thing? And looking back, I have no idea why I even wondered that, because of course, if they're that strong, it's always been the real thing in the past. But still, I was like, is this really it? And then trying to figure out, okay, I think I was also thrown off a little bit just by having it start in the morning like that instead of at night. And it's just a very different situation, like what to do with the kids, and you know, how is this day gonna go? Because you don't know if they're gonna calm down and go away, or if, you know, baby's gonna be born that day or that night, the next day, you don't know. But, you know, I should have known, like, my first stage always goes very fast. So I decided I better let my husband know. So I went ahead and told him what was happening. The funny thing was they still never got close together. They were just getting stronger, not closer together, the contractions. And so I told him what was happening. I didn't want to like call him home from work if, you know, something was not really happening or whatever. So I just kind of told him what was going on. Yeah, so then when I got back home from taking my daughter to school is when I was like, okay, this is probably happening. I need to start filling up that pool. So I did. I got the hose connected and started filling it up. That's when I went ahead and told him, like, you better come home because I think this is really happening now. Yeah, so I start filling up the pool, and I told him, my husband, that, you know, things are happening and I'm pretty sure this is the real thing, so you probably better come home. And then I also have my other 2 little boys with me, so at home, and so I called my sister-in-law and she came and picked them up, and I didn't even see her at all. I was just sending her a text because at this time they were getting intense. Still not closer together though, just intense. And so she came, I just was like, I'm in the living room, the boys are over there in the playroom, I have their bags there, you can just come get them. So I didn't even see her, she just came in, got them and left, which was fine because I couldn't really like talk to anybody very easily or like visit, you know, things were happening. And I remember in the living room like, oh, is she gone yet? Has she pulled away? Has she pulled out from the driveway yet? Like, has she driven away? Because I just want my clothes off and I want to be in that water. And I think at that time is when I probably told my husband, okay, you need to come right now. That was around 9 a.m. Yeah, so during that time when I was waiting for my sister-in-law to come get the little boys and filling up the pool, that's when they really started getting stronger, and I was sure that he was going to be born soon. And while I was waiting for her to come pick them up, I started a little TV show for my other 2 boys in the other room, and so that's where she got them from, so that I could just focus on those contractions and, you know, fill up the pool. I remember I had to quick like do stuff. All of this morning was like this, and I just had to quick do stuff in between contractions. So like I was making breakfast and I'd have to stop and lean against the table and breathe through them, and then I'd go about what I was doing, and then getting them into the car. Okay, and then put him in his car seat, buckle him in, get in the car, drive, and then same thing when I came back, like getting the hose hooked up, filling up the pool, all that. I'd have to stop, breathe through them. And then once it was past, then I had time in between them to do stuff. It was so interesting because in the past I've always had them get closer together too, and yeah, it was so interesting how I always had time. So my husband ended up arriving around 9:20 a.m. So at that point I was in the water when he got there, and from then on it was so interesting that water is amazing at how much more comfortable it helps you to feel. So I just was concentrating on sitting in that water, and he added some hot water to it to help keep the temperature where it was supposed to be. But I just sat in that water and I just concentrated on relaxing my body totally, just using that water to just relax. I tried to think about every bit of my body, having it be as relaxed as possible, and then when a contraction would come, just breathing through it. So that's pretty much all I did through each one, is just really heavy, deep, strong breathing. I just used to try to relax everything. That was my main focus, is just keeping my body relaxed and breathing breathing through those contractions. Also focusing any type of energy, anything downward, like not breathing out forward, but breathing like down, like directing all energy and relaxation downward, if that makes sense. So I really focused on that. Totally relaxing and focusing everything downward. As they started getting stronger, I started feeling a lot of pressure down there. It was starting to get more and more uncomfortable, and I was just like, oh, I wish my water would break. There was no mucus plug or anything yet that I had lost, which was interesting because in other labors I had lost that earlier on before labor even started, which told me that it was probably going to start pretty soon. Nothing like that happened at all, and I remember thinking I was in the water, like, that hasn't happened yet. My water has not broke, but this is intense. And still the contractions were not very close together. I never timed them. I never really had a chance to really think about that. I was just, you know, managing them, breathing through them. Yeah, just focusing on managing the contractions and then doing stuff in between them. They never got closer together. I don't even remember exactly what the time frame was. It was like, you know, a good amount of time in between them up until the very end. And so, but that pressure was building, and I was like, oh, I just wish something would happen, like my water would break or something to relieve some of that pressure. And then at 10:19, my water did break. I felt a pop and rush, and the water was broken just like that, and it was relieved a lot of pressure. So with my breathing, I just remembered a little more clearly too. What I was doing was focusing the breath downward to where he was. So at the same time as my water breaking, I had this really strong urge to push. So then I knew, okay, we are into the second stage of labor already. That's when I was like, okay, we better tell the midwife to come because we're already here at the pushing stage. And so my husband went ahead and called her, and they said they were on their way. And then I remember thinking, I just went through transition without realizing it. So in my first 2 labors, when I was not in water or anything to help with that, I remember transition being the point where you're just like, I cannot do this anymore. This is so intense. And then once you get through that, then things kind of calm down a little bit, and then you just have to work on the pushing stage. But I realized my water had broken. It was time to push. I had gone through transition and I didn't even realize it. That water and the way that I was breathing and just being totally relaxed made it so that I did not have to experience that part of labor, which is, I think, the hardest part going through transition. It has been in the past for me anyway. Didn't even experience it. The contractions were not any closer together. They were, you know, like I said, a lot stronger, but there was none of that intense, out of control feeling that I had dealt with before. It was amazing. I could hardly believe it. So then at this stage, once I was into the pushing stage, I kept up with trying to stay relaxed and directing my breath downward. The other thing that I did is I visualized him down there. He needs to have his chin tucked in his head like that to be in a really ideal position for coming out. And so I visualized him doing that. Each time that I would push, I would tuck my own chin down and my head down just like he needed to be doing. It's funny, I have no idea why that helps, but I think it did. Would totally do that again. And so that's what I did. Each time that I pushed, I still had to, like, I know that some people with the more babies that they have, they don't really have to push much at all. I still have to put a lot of effort, like everything that I've got into pushing it, just the way that my body is. But this is the really crazy thing. I could feel like never in any other labor, I could feel progress each time that I pushed. He was coming down the birth canal. Always in the past, even with the third one that was way better than the first 2, there was always a time where it was like, okay, you are making progress, but it's super slow, and you know, just keep going at it. And then finally he was born. This time it was like real measurable progress that I could feel. He was moving down. And then at 10:40 a.m. the midwife arrived. I remember as they were coming in the door, I was already starting to feel that burning, they call it the ring of fire, where the head is about to start to come through. And I was like, this is crazy. I have never had this go so fast before. So yeah, the midwife and her assistant rushes in and start getting their stuff out. They didn't really have time to do much of anything in labor. I don't remember. They might have gotten some heart tones, made sure he was doing well, which he was. And yeah, and then really soon after they arrived, then I could feel that head crowning, and then I pushed his head through. I went ahead and stood up, and then I had to push the rest of his body through. And I remember at that point, I was like, oh, I need another contraction to come to help with with this, but one wasn't coming, so I had to try to muster up strength to push his body out myself, and they kind of helped get a shoulder out a little bit, which was totally fine, no big deal. And then his body came through and there he was. It was a total time of pushing. I don't know if it was even 30 minutes. It was amazing. Real progress that I could feel. Nothing long, drawn out, exhausting like my other previous labors had been. It was so fast, so smooth. Didn't have to experience transition like I had before. It was incredible. Yeah, so 10:57 a.m. was when he was born. I just cannot get over how fast and smooth that was for my body. So yeah, I owe it to those things that I talked about before, especially that body work, and then probably the things that I was doing in labor, staying relaxed and focusing my breathing and energy downward and just all that. So that was his birth story, and just, I don't know, I just am so amazed at what a difference position makes. So yeah, he was big, again, 9 pounds, 7 ounces, just like the last baby. It's so funny that the fastest, easiest labors were my biggest babies too. And I think that that just proves that position is everything. Size doesn't even make that big of a difference. I'm not a big person. Like, that's a big baby for my body. Another big thing that I was going to bring up too was, before all of this, I was like, I really want to get some footage of me being in labor this time. I don't know exactly how we're gonna do it, but I want to try, because that would be really neat just for our own memories. And then I know that when people share birth stories, if there's actual footage too, that's just so amazing to see. So that, unfortunately, we did not make that happen. I should have had like cameras there set up ready to use, and like specific instructions for my husband or somebody to be able to turn them on and all that kind of thing, and we just didn't prepare all that. I had an idea in my head that it would be nice to do, but in my head I had it thinking that it was going to start at night and be a little bit different of a situation than it was. So having it start in the morning like that, I think, really threw me off, because I was planning to like have my phone nearby and be like, okay, take some video or something. But yeah, it starting at a different time of day just really threw me off, and so we didn't have any of that set up and ready to go, so we didn't get any footage. Also, just with it happening so fast too was different, and so it made it so that I was like, you know, getting out filming equipment was not high in my mind that morning. So yeah, unfortunately we didn't get footage of that, but we have some pictures after he was born and some of that we can put in here. And yeah, so that is his birth story. So crazy, so fast and smooth, so good. Yeah, so I hope that you enjoyed hearing that. I know that hearing positive birth stories, especially when it came to things that people had learned about, you know, what kind of things that you can do to help things go faster and smoother and be easier, I really appreciated learning about when I've been pregnant before. So hopefully this is interesting and helpful for somebody, and if you did like this video, then give it a thumbs up, share it with anybody else who you think would enjoy seeing it. And if you're new to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. I get out 2 new videos every week on nourishing recipes and natural living. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.